Thanks so much for joining us for today's Discover sessions featuring art and National High School Game Academy within the Carnegie Mellon's pre-college programs. So our Discover sessions are an opportunity to learn about pre-college programs and our application process on a high level, our student affairs structure and activities, so really what happens outside of the academic classroom, and a chance to learn more about the academic programs that we're featuring today. Again, that's Art and National High School Game Academy. Let me just quickly introduce the presenters tonight. I am Marjorie Dawkins. I'm the Associate Director of Pre-College Enrollment Management. And then we have Meg Pryor, the Assistant Director of Pre-College Student Affairs. Meg, if you want to give a little wave there. And then from the art program, we have Bill Rogers. And then from National High School Game Academy, we have Chris Klug. There we go. So as we move through our agenda tonight, you can see the agenda on the screen, and questions pop into your mind, please type them into the Q&A Zoom feature. We'll answer them as we move through the presentation, or we might hold them until the end. So let's begin with an overview of pre-college programs. You're going to hear us refer to the Office of Pre-College Programs. That is the team that manages the enrollment, logistics, and student affairs portion of our programming. Meg and I are part of that team. Then each specific academic program is run by one or more program directors, and they manage the academic portion of the programming, so the curriculum. So looking at our pre-college programs as a whole, we have 12 different academic programs. All offer scholarship. Most of the programs will offer both residential and commuter options. We'll talk specifically about the two programs tonight later. We have programs of varying lengths, from 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the program, and we'll enroll about 800 students from around the country and actually from around the globe. A couple of important requirements. We do require you to be at least 16 years of age at the time of programming, so by June 21, 2025. And we also require our students to be rising 11th or 12th graders, so juniors or seniors, during the summer of 2025. So if you are filling out an application, you should be a sophomore or a junior right now. Briefly, I'm going to run through our other programs so you are aware. If you have specific questions about these other programs, please reach out to me after the presentation or consider attending another Discover session that features that program. So we have AI Scholars, Architecture, Art featured tonight, Computational Biology, CS Scholars, Design, Drama, Music, National High School Game Academy featured tonight, Summer Academy for Math and Science, Summer Session, and Writing and Culture. So you can see there's a wide range of options here. Again, if you have questions about these other programs, reach out to me directly, please. So now I'm going to hand it over to Bill, and he's going to talk a bit about his art program.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Rogers, and there is my information in case you have any questions after this presentation and want to reach out to me. Email is the best way to start. And I'm here to talk to you about the pre-college art program. At the end of my talk, I'm going to share a slideshow of some pre-college documentation, photos from different classes, as well as some work made by CMU undergraduate students. So the pre-college art program is designed to expose you to the undergraduate experience at CMU. It's to challenge you with new ideas. It's to help you explore new art-making techniques. It's to help you understand how to make a portfolio. And it's to help you understand the importance of critique. So pre-college art will help you become better creative problem solvers for questions like, how do my materials relate to my concepts? What processes can I combine and why? How can I push myself to take risks? How do I talk about my work during a critique? And how do I arrange a portfolio for college applications? And now, Marjorie, if you can go to the next slide, please. So I'll give you a second there to read that quote. And that's just that's actually from the website. It's a nice way to summarize kind of the pre-college art experience. And again, so to learn new technical processes in a variety of mediums, to explore different types of idea generation, and to practice the communication of your ideas. These are really the bedrock concepts of the program. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Marjorie. So then we see the 2025 program dates. And art is split up into a 3-week or a 6-week experience. The first 3 weeks of classes are animation, drawing, sculpture, and a class that we call Concept Studio. In the second 3 weeks, students will take painting, digital photography, printmaking, and then Concept Studio continues from the first 3 weeks. These classes consist of individual instruction, in-class work sessions, critiques, demonstrations, and lectures. Each class will be around 12 to 15 students in size, and the classes run from 9 a.m. to noon, there's an hour for lunch, and then from 1 to 4 p.m. They meet twice a week, either Wednesday or Thursday schedule. Evenings, after every class session, and on the weekends, we have time set aside for Open Studio. So this is where you can continue your project work. And also the TAs, who are all undergraduate, so the assistants for the faculty, are also then available during these Open Studio times to give feedback on current project work, as well as to talk about their own experiences in the art program at CMU, and also their own process of where they applied, how they put together their portfolio, what they're currently working on, how they talk about their work. And then Fridays during the week are set aside for special workshops. These workshops are around 3 hours long, and they're different every year. They're one-offs. They may be mold making, knitting, rotoscoping, installation drawing, creative writing, and even one year we had paper airplane making. And you'll see those from there. Workshops in just a second. There's also an opportunity in the program for students to sign up for one-on-one portfolio reviews. There's an opportunity to share what you're working on. In the past, it's been run by our Director of Undergraduate Admissions, Sheikha Logtu. And this is a great way for students to get feedback on themes of their current work, how to arrange their portfolio, where else they're thinking of applying, and different sort of strategies on how you can best present yourself. And now we're going to, if you can go to the next slide, please, Marjorie. Now we're going to start the fun part, looking at the different classes and examples from over the years. So here's drawing, and Marjorie, next slide, please. You can hear me say that a lot. And also the way that each of these classes are run, every summer, things are tweaked. We continually learn how the previous summer went, things that went well, projects, different assignments. It's iterative, and that's something I reach out to students. Everyone is offered the opportunity to fill out a survey to give me feedback on what went well, what could it be done in a better way. And every summer, the improvements are because of student input. So here we have an example of drawing still life arrangement. Next slide, please. And there's figure drawing is a big component of drawing. So drawing from the live nude model is a major part of drawing. Next slide, please. Different sort of anatomical sort of and portraiture work. Next slide, please. And again, you see on the image there, again, this gathering around, talking about what you just put together, getting feedback from students. So it's not just how to talk about your own work, but how to talk about others' work is a really important part of each of the classes. Next slide, please. More examples. This is an example of, at the end of the 3 weeks and at the end of the 6 weeks, we do have a student exhibit where students put up work from all their classes in the hallway. And it's a great time to invite friends from the other programs that you made over the summer to come check out your work. And this is a shot of that in the hallway, sort of salon style. Next slide, please. Now on the sculpture. Next slide, please. Sculpture, the trick with a lot of these programs, of the classes too, is how to structure a 3-week experience to get experience with different materials, and also how to scale up, like how to envision something and then either do iterations of it or to make it larger. So there's an example of working with material like foam. Next slide, please. And then we have some mold making. So you see making a cast of a foot and someone's casting their ear. Next slide, please. Great arm result. Next slide. And this is a technique called brazing, which is using metal when warmed up to a certain temperature is made to be malleable and like a soldering in a way. Next slide, please. They're doing various arrangements for wearables. So again, it's taking the object and then seeing how that relates to the body. Next slide, please. And then mixing casting in it. And this is just one summer. Next slide. A totally different approach then was taking this idea of wearables even further. And then we had students to put together using different materials, exploring craft, and then becoming a parade. So the actual performance aspect of it. Next slide, please. A couple more group shots. Next slide. And the importance of then using cardboard and things like that, simple materials to explore really sort of dense, complicated ideas. This is a really wonderful student's work. That all those flowers in there are made of paper. The suit, everything. Next slide, please. There's a couple different angles of it. This is that same class with the cardboard and so on. This was all constructed by the student. Next slide. First name was Jacob, I believe. And next slide. And again, there's the active critique, right? Again, gathering around, talking about what was put together, considering all aspects of the room when doing so. Next slide. Thank you, Marjorie, by the way. Animation, I'm going to move through here. So animation, the past couple summers have been an approach, mixing, doing stop motion work and a mix of almost low and high end, right? So using different sort of felt materials to build these figures and then using DSLR cameras, light kits, and then laptops using drag and frame to then stitch these together. So next slide. And also the opportunity to work in groups, which is something that the other classes is more individual focused, something that I'm sure Chris will talk at great length as far as like the importance of team sort of activities, and animation, there are one class that really focus on that. So students find different roles, different sort of ways that they can contribute to the project. Next slide, please. And again, scaling up larger. Next slide, please. And there's a close-up of that drag and frame software. Next slide. And some great green screen. This is from years ago, but I just love this as an image. So again, the idea of, and also mixing performance, costume work, and then putting yourself in the work to then take the stills to then make a final piece. Next slide, please. Also, I don't know when I started, so let me know when we're getting close to 10 minutes. I forgot to check the time. Printmaking. Here's some examples of screen printing. So, and then printmaking, this would be a class that would happen during the second 3 weeks, just to keep that kind of straight. Drawing, sculpture, and animation would happen during the first 3. So now this is what would happen the second 3 weeks. Next slide, please. Printing on fabric, bags, exploring t-shirt work, printing on paper, zines is another thing that's explored in printmaking. Next slide, please. The idea of multiples. And here using the presses for, I believe that is a relief print, probably using a lino cut kind of arrangement. Next slide, please. And those projects, then you work with the idea of registering multiple colors, doing a small print, a small run, maybe say 30 prints, and then really focusing on one being like the next. And then here we have painting. Next slide, please. Painting is approached differently every summer. And then here we have an example of portraiture, water-based, like quick sort of gestural works. Next slide, please. It's a close-up of more of that. In the past, painting is using acrylics, oils, working small, working large. Next slide, please. Doing experimental works outside, arts abstraction work. The faculty that make up the program are all within sort of the CMU universe. They may be full-time faculty, they may be adjuncts, they may be recent graduate students, but they have a sense as far as how the program runs and how, again, how that undergraduate experience really functions. So we continue to tweak the projects in response to who might be teaching it that summer. Next slide, please. Some close-ups then of these larger pieces. Painting is also the classes. Some have really spent time on how to build your own canvas to stretch and so on. I mean, again, building skills that whenever you leave the program, you'll be able to take them back home and use them to continue making your work wherever that might be. Next slide, please. We have digital photo, move through. Getting out in the world using a DSLR camera, understanding shutter speed, aperture. Next slide. Like sort of core components, getting your friends involved. Next slide, please. And then going from out in the world and then using different image editing software, so Photoshop is being a big one. Students within the art program have access to the Adobe Creative Suite, and the classes find different ways for the students to explore that. Next slide, please. And then you see here's an example of the image on the left. It's Brian Martello, who actually will be teaching Concept Studio this summer. Teaching photo in a way was more about making the work and creating the room, the layout as an installation. So the image as, that incorporates the viewer or the space beyond just what happens with the camera and the image editing. That's something we continue to change. And then the right example of just layout for a critique sort of scenario. Next slide, please. And here's this class called Concept Studio I mentioned, where it isn't focused on a particular specific medium. It's more about the act of putting together ideas, exploring different sort of approaches. Some of the classes look into artist writing, manifestos, performance work. Here we see a large installation kind of arrangement. I can flip through, Marjorie. See a couple close-ups of that. Using different materials, wearables, for performance, creating a different sort of arrangement for individuals to kind of live and be. Yep. And then stop here, and then we see it. Oh, one back one. Sorry. Great example of see a student, which was a little darker in the room, but using cutouts and then simple sort of phone flashlights that then do almost like shadow play work. Next slide, please. This was a performance piece where the person had different questions in the pockets that they had made of this suit. And if you answered a question, then you were given a small figurine that they had made. Next slide, please. It's a video piece. It was a whole thing about a mushroom land. Next slide, please. And this was an arrangement where a performance piece, the students putting together, where this is all about the manifesto idea, right? But they were all about the power of the eggs, this knowledge, liberation, and they had made different suits. Next slide, please. And then they took their performance out onto campus, and then sort of exploring what does it mean whenever you make something and then put it out into the world, and then how do you engage with the public? What does it have? How does that change things whenever someone does or doesn't respond that you had intended or expected? Next slide, please. Again, critique. Next slide, please. Oh, you're good. And there was just more again. Critiques that are gathering around, again, talking. A lot of talking about, responding to, considering. Next slide. And these are the Friday workshops. And we can kind of just flip through these. Different examples of sewing, interactive video and storytelling. There's the paper airplanes. And then we might be getting into now, and there's the knitting that I mentioned. There's some cyanotype printing out in the world, but fabric dyeing. And then the examples of the undergraduate work, Marjorie, you can just, at the speed that you feel fit. So these are from a couple years ago, but to show you the range. So these students not too long ago were in high school, just like yourself. And that's something also I have the TAs give TA artist talks during the first week of the program, where they talk about, here's what I was making in high school, and here's what I'm making now in my second or third year at CMU. So you get a sense as far as where you can see that jump. And also for the students to understand, you too were just like me, and you were interested in this, but now you have incorporated these different sort of ideas or these different materials, and the conversation continues. I think that's the other thing the program really tries to focus on is how this is always changing. It's always developing, you're always growing, I almost ended that perfectly. Look at that. And please email me if you have any questions, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. So I am now going to stop sharing, and we're going to hear from Chris. Chris, can you tell us about Game Academy?
Sure. Okay, so every summer, somewhere between 70 and 80 students take part in the high school Game Academy. I want to start talking a little bit about the application process, because I often get a lot of questions about this. We evaluate students in different categories, partly because our project methodology over the summer is team-based. So we group together 2 programmers, 2 artists, sound designer, and this year we're adding a 6th team member who could be a 3rd programmer, a 3rd artist, or a generalist. More about that when I get to the projects. And so students often are looking for ways to present, put their best foot forward, things that they're particularly passionate about. And so we let students apply as a software engineer, as an artist, as a sound designer, or as a generalist in case they're either not sure or they feel that their overall interest in game development spills over the artificial boundaries of those categories. And often I get questions about, well, what should I submit as a portfolio piece? And I always encourage students to simply submit the thing they feel best represents who they are, and leave it to me to try to match that artifact, that piece, that game, that piece of writing or artwork with the way you would best fit into the program. Okay. The first 2 weeks of the summer are spent in classes, and every student gets trained in every discipline: software engineering, 2D art, 3D art, audio, team dynamics, team collaboration, any of the skills that we feel are going to be called upon over the course of the 6 weeks once students get into teams. And so, although you might have been admitted based on a certain portfolio piece, what's really important about the 2 weeks of classes is that you get a chance to try everything, first of all. And second of all, we get to see what it's like when you create and deliver a piece of game art or software to get a sense of whether your summer is as you thought it would be, specializing in something, or whether multiple different assignments on your teams would be better for you. So while your portfolio piece might be the thing you're proudest of, we're expecting that over the summer you might broaden or grow in ways that might even surprise you. At the end of the 2 weeks, we evaluate all the students and we group them into the first project, which we call the lightning round, where we assemble teams out of the students and we prompt them with a classic arcade game, Donkey Kong or Asteroids or something that existed in the early days of video games, and they recreate that game. And this teaches, without the pressure of coming up with a new original idea, it teaches the idea of how you work together to build a game. The students create original art, original code, original audio, and at the end of a week, we play the game and the students present their work as a team. This 1 week experience helps us really understand not only the students' skill sets, but how well they collaborate with each other. And that mix of understanding that it's not just the skill per se or the craft, but how you communicate and how you collaborate on ideas and how you support each other, that is the most important thing that carries over into the second project, which begins in week 4, where students get reshuffled onto new teams, and that new team creates an original game from start to finish so that they pitch ideas. So the students go through and understand what a pitch process is. The faculty chooses one of the ideas that gets pitched, and the team goes off and builds it over the last 2.5 weeks. That sequence culminates in a showing on main campus, where the students get up in front of a large auditorium of people. Often it includes family, other students, other pre-college students, and guests, and they present slides and give a demo of this new original game idea. So that covers the 6 weeks of the program. This year, for the first time, we're going to spend the first 2 weeks in class on main campus. This is owing to construction issues in our home building, which is down near the Monongahela River. And after the 2 weeks of classes, we'll shift and hold the rest of the summer at the ETC to avail ourselves of all the technology that's in existence at the ETC. There are multiple green screen rooms, there's projector rooms, there's built-in environmental sort of game platforms that the students can avail themselves of, along with headsets and AR, VR sort of combination technology. And we're expecting that when the students begin to develop their own game ideas, they'll take advantage of all those technologies. The faculty is mainly ETC instructors, combined with some of our graduate students who have already demonstrated professional grade work as a grad student at the ETC. I come out of AAA games. I've built a dozen different AAA games, not myself, of course, but I contributed. The other game design faculty member worked for EA for a while. Another game design faculty is a published indie game designer. One of our art instructors just won a Best in Show for an animated film he did at SIGGRAPH. We have professional experience along with our experience teaching the grad students at the ETC. So the watchword for our general instructional methodology over the summer is to try to communicate to you best practices for game development, whether you're an undergraduate at CMU or a grad student in some other program, or if you desire to go into the game industry. The same methods and best practices span all those worlds. But I think most importantly, the best thing we teach, or the most important thing we teach, is how to creatively collaborate. Games cannot be built by a single human being. Well, I mean, technically they can, but it's extremely rare. It's about communication, it's about sharing ideas, it's about sharing credit, and it's about scaffolding each other into something that's greater than the sum of its parts. And that is the thing we try to work on the most from the first day you're at the camp to the last day, is that the most important thing really is working with your teammates and building something amazing. So that's a good summary of the High School Game Academy.
Thank you, Chris. I am now going to share the screen again, Meg, and then how about if you tell us a bit about the student affairs portion? And you are muted. You're still muted, Meg.
Now?
Now I can hear you.
What's going on? All right, let me start again. My name is Meg Pryor, and now I'm glitching. Okay. I'm the Assistant Director for Pre-College Student Affairs. So my job is basically to focus on and support the student life side of the pre-college experience at CMU. So I'm going to speak to that, what that means for you if you become a pre-college student with us. Marjorie, can you go to the next slide? So we strive to offer sort of a holistic experience to allow pre-college students to get a test run of the college experience. Part of that is we also want our students to be able to experience Pittsburgh while they're here. So we offer a number of opportunities for that kind of exploration off campus. We sponsor trips that students can buy tickets to go to a Pirate game, which is the Pittsburgh's Major League Baseball team. It's a beautiful park, great place to see a game. We also offer trips that students can buy tickets to Falling Water, which is beautiful home designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. That's probably the first example of green architecture built into the land. Pre-college students are also provided with a bus pass, which allows access to various areas throughout Pittsburgh. And in addition, the pre-college students receive an arts pass as part of their ID that allows students to visit local museums for free, or sometimes there's a small charge. Next slide, please, Marge. So part of the pre-college experience is, for most students, is living on campus. And then for students who are coming as commuters, we also still want to support the campus life aspect of their experience. So I supervise a staff of somewhere around 60 undergraduate Carnegie Mellon students. These students serve in the role of either a community advisor, or a resident advisor, or a senior resident advisor. All of those students reside in the residential halls with pre-college students and are available to provide 24/7 support to residents. We work collaboratively as a team to try to deliver a robust student experience. And I work directly with the residential staff to make sure that we are able to provide a wide variety of activities for students to be able to participate in outside of the classroom. All those activities are optional, but it's our hope that students participate in as many activities as they can manage while focusing on academics that will fit in their schedule. We believe that this helps to prepare students for future studies by learning how to manage time inside and outside of the classroom. And we also believe it's important to provide opportunities to be able to make connections with students outside of the programs that students are in. Can you go back to this previous slide, Marjorie? Sorry. I just want to talk a little bit about for residential students, the housing. Pre-college residential students are housed in freshman dormitories. All of the dorms that we use are air conditioned. We aim to try to pair our residential pre-college students with a roommate from their own academic program. This helps with traveling through the same schedule together. However, the mix of students within each building and on each floor, we try to encompass all other programs so that students have an opportunity, again, to be socializing and developing friendships with people outside of their program. Next slide now, Marjorie, please. Thank you. We also sponsor some on-campus activities to, again, help try to build out the full student experience. Some examples of some of the events that we do on campus are: we have a professional fireworks display on July 4th. We have student clubs, which students have the opportunity to form their own clubs. We also have clubs that are designed and supported by RAs and CAs. Those clubs are designed to function much like an undergraduate student club would. So they generally meet on a weekly basis, and we've encompassed pretty much anything you can think of with our student clubs. We have had knitting clubs and crafts clubs. We've had Dungeons and Dragons clubs and ethics in engineering. Pretty much anything you can imagine. You have the opportunity to have some fun and explore some common interests with other students. We also, our residential staff will sponsor floor events and building events. that again are optional, but allow students an opportunity to meet some new people and to build a connection. Next slide, please. So as a pre-college student at CMU, students have access to most of the same resources that are available to our undergraduate student population. This consists of things like our Student Academic Success Center, which is an excellent resource that can help with tutoring, can help with addressing study habits and helping to build a better plan. We often have students come to the pre-college program and are a little bit wowed by the amount of work, and Student Academic Success Center is a great resource to help with that. University Health Services is available for students that are sick or injured. We also always have our residential staff on hand if students need to be accompanied to an urgent care or need more care at like an emergency room situation. Counseling and psychological services, or as we call it, CAPS on campus, are available for students who might be struggling with some mental health issues. All of the athletic facilities are available to students. Sometimes the hours are different in the summer, but those are always posted on the website. Numerous study spaces around campus. We have a new wellness center that just opened that has some spaces available as well. The Center for Diversity and Inclusion, and many, many more. I just kind of want to wrap up by saying that really the goal from my perspective for students in the pre-college programs are to allow our students to experience much more than the incredible academic and experience that they're having in the classroom. Our goal is to provide an opportunity to test out the undergraduate experience, not just at CMU, but to prepare for students for what they might expect wherever they end up when they graduate and study at any university that they might attend.
Okay, thank you, Meg. As you have gathered, we both our programming and our student affairs are very thoughtfully developed and curated to make this as like a university experience as a pre-college experience can possibly be. And that includes the application. Our application does intentionally look like a college application. This is practice for you for your next step when you're applying for undergraduate. Our application is online. It is open. You can find links on our website. It's rather easy to find the application links. And you are going to be required to submit many of the same things that you're required to submit with an undergraduate application. You're required to submit your high school transcript, essays, one or more, a recommendation. This process is done entirely through the online application, just as a little heads up. You'll be supplying us with contact information of your recommender, and then our system sends them an email. They submit it through our online system. So that is all encapsulated within our online system. And then depending on the program, a portfolio might be required. For both of the programs this evening, Art and Game Academy, portfolios are required. So please take note of that. We also have some optional sections for you. One of the optional sections is our standardized test scores. So if you would like to, you can submit your SATs, PSATs. If you do not submit them, there's no penalty. So please do that at your discretion. The extracurricular activities, that is an optional section, but I actually do highly recommend it. It helps us to sort of understand who you are and how you're choosing to spend your time now. It speaks to your passion for the topic and for the program activity that you're interested in. If you are applying for a scholarship, and please note, all of our programs do offer scholarships. That includes both Art and Game Academy. And if you are applying for those, it is the same application as we only have one application. And so you'd be supplying some household information so that we can understand the financial status of the household, and then some documentation to support that. So that's part of the scholarship application. Within the application, you will be asked to, or provided the opportunity to, select up to 3 programs of choice. we will review them in the order in which you list them. So if you are first interested in art, that's your first choice program, you'll want to list that as a first choice program. And then if game is number 2, please list it as second. We will review them in the order in which you list those. All required materials need to be uploaded into the online system, including the recommendations for the submit button to work. So please, you'll want to plan ahead, think ahead, especially if you're doing scholarships and you need to dig up some 1040s, you need some parent or guardian help. That's something you'll want to plan ahead for. So I'll just quickly review our program dates. Our opening day is June 21. That is a Saturday. And then we have a full week of activities, fun activities, an orientation weekend. Classes will begin then that Monday, June 23rd. For if you are doing the 3-week art program, your final class would be on July 11th. And then if you're doing the 6-week art or game academy, your final class would be on August 1st. Those days are full. We do have activities on those days. So you'll want to plan to be engaged throughout to the end of that day. If you're a residential student, you will need to move out of our residential halls by 2 p.m. the following Saturday after your last day of class. So my final bit that I need to make sure everyone's aware of is we have 2 application deadlines. The first is February 1st. That is for anyone who is an international applicant. You'll need to get your application in by February 1st. And then also, if you would like to apply under our early decision deadline, also February 1st. Now, I want to be clear that this early decision, it's not binding. So if you are at the undergraduate level, if you apply early decision, you're kind of bound into that decision if you are admitted. That is not the way pre-college works. Our early decision is really about just encouraging you to get in the front of the queue. Our programs are popular. They can be very competitive. So, and when we have a full class and a robust wait list, we might remove, actually we will remove the application, that program from our application. So if Game Academy fills up by the first week in February, let's say, we'll close that then, just because we just feel that we want to be transparent. If we don't have any room in the program any longer, we don't want you to spend your time on the application, certainly not pay the application fee. So please be aware, if you want to definitely get in while all the programs are open, I would aim for that early decision. The second and last application deadline is March 1st. So that is when all scholarship applications are due. And then, as I said, it's the final one. Unless you're an international, your deadline is February 1st. Any other applications, you got to have them in March 1st to be considered. And really, we don't have any wiggle room with that. After you submit your application, please check your email and your applicant status portal for status updates. Any decisions will be posted to your portal, and then an email will be sent. If you are admitted or waitlisted, you will have 7 days to reply to the offer. So you really do want to stay on top of and be looking for a status update. So on the screen right now, you can see the list of the presenters here tonight. I'm going to cut and paste that and pop it into the chat. So if you want to grab that for your reference, please do that. And then I think we're just going to open the evening up. I'm going to stop sharing. And we're going to open it up.
Marjorie.
Yes.
Sorry, there are 3 questions in the Q&A that I wanted to be sure that we addressed that I thought maybe Bill and or Chris could answer, because I'm not sure which program they're addressing. But maybe you could each speak to first, approximately how many students apply and how many get accepted each year for your individual programs.
So I know for arts, on average, the final group size for the 3 weeks is, we shoot for around 50 to 54, anywhere between 48 to 50-ish. And then about half of those students leave for the following 3 weeks, so that it goes down to a group around 20 to 24. As far as how many the starting number, that's something actually I think Marjorie would have a better sense as far as the total applicants at the start.
Yeah, and I'd have to say that it really varies year to year. I would think that there's probably 60% of the students are offered admittance. So with that number, what would that be? What is that? If you have 50, I'd have to do the math, and it feels a little late to do the math. I don't have that off the top of my head, but we have about a 60% admit rate for art. Game Academy is a bit lower, and that's because there's a lot more tracks, so it pulls from a wider pool of interests. I will look up that number and I will pop that into the chat. Excuse me for not knowing that off the top of my head.
Well, I'll also just follow up as far as the student or whoever might have asked that question. If you have questions about what you're applying with or for art, I'm more than happy. Just email me to give feedback. But to Marjorie's point, there are more people apply than get in. So there is. We do consider from student to student how they might be a good fit for the program or not.
Game Academy, as I said, we tend to admit to areas of specialty, might be a way to put it. And so we admit roughly about 24 programmers, 24 art students, approximately 12 to 15 audio specialists, and then the rest are generalists who end up performing perhaps a multitude of roles on their teams. But those are very round numbers. They're approximate.
We had a question, is there over the summer program specifically technical design and production like lighting? Bill, I don't think that art necessarily covers that. I believe there's a design track in the drama program, but
yeah, it sounds like the design track and drama. That's right.
Yeah. Is there a major, Chris, this is for you, is there a major or courses similar to National Game Academy as an undergrad at Carnegie Mellon?
Undergrads at Carnegie Mellon can minor in game development. It's done through the Ideate program. Traditionally, those students in that minor can come from any specialty in the university: computer science, humanities, fine art, and architecture are often programs that end up sending students into Ideate for their minor.
Okay, so maybe I'm just going to throw out a couple of questions that I think people might want clarity on. First, let me start with you, Bill. So you've got two program options, 3 weeks and 6 weeks. Why would a student want to do 6 weeks?
If you have, if the time is available to you, the 6 weeks, it's a more robust experience. It's an opportunity to there's a whole different suite of classes. The action opportunity to see Concept Studio through, like I mentioned, it is in a sense a 6-week class that if you have the opportunity, you can delve further into your own work and your own understanding. More workshops, another chance for the group show. There's just, unfortunately, just to say more, but it is a. We've seen with the students that leave when the 3 weeks is coming up and they have to leave, they really wish that they could stay. And the students that have the 6-week experience really feel like they have the time to really get comfortable and just explore and take advantage of the opportunities. And 3 weeks in some ways almost feels like you're just starting to do that.
So can you tell me if what would I walk away from? Let's say I'm thinking about maybe studying art at the undergraduate level. I'm thinking about applications.
Right.
How does that
Well,
help?
yeah, so that's one thing I want to make sure it's clear that if you do go the 3-week track, you still have the opportunity for a portfolio review. You still have the opportunity to see the artist talks, to have the group show, to still participate in the Friday workshops. So you're not at a loss for 3 weeks. It's just the 6 weeks just adds more of that. And I would say that the additional time, the opportunity to get to know your faculty better, the TAs in particular, I think, who have really tremendous insight on what's available for undergraduates at CMU that may be something that the faculty or myself aren't as aware of. So, yeah, I think that answers your question.
Okay, Chris. So
Yes.
I understand that Game Academy is only being offered as a residential program this year, and that's new
Yes.
this year. Can you kind of speak to that? Why the shift there?
Okay. Students certainly spend a great deal of time outside of the ETC collaborating in the dorms at night and on the weekends. That's not only good, solid work time, it's great social bonding time. Teams will often have breakfast with each other. They'll have lunch with each other. They'll have dinner with each other. They'll socialize. They'll go shopping together. And while it doesn't seem like that is work time, inevitably, what they talk about is what they're working on. And it allows them to brainstorm and share ideas in a less formal environment, which is a great nurturing ground for ideas. Students who go home at night just don't connect as strongly with their team as a student who's a resident. That's what it's about. It's not like it can't work. I'm not saying that students who go home at night are working less hard. It's not about the work. It's about the social bonding and the collaboration as a teammate.
Thank you. So we have another question here. If you apply before the February 1 deadline, when will you be informed if you're accepted or offered admittance? So that's rolling. So unless you are applying for a scholarship, all other decisions are sent on a rolling basis. So and that's why getting in the front of the queue is really important for these competitive programs. But so we will churn out the decisions. We keep moving through them and deliver them on a rolling basis. The scholarships, if you are applying for a scholarship, we will release those decisions on April 4th. That is a fixed release date. So just be aware of those two things. Okay, do we have any other questions? You can feel free to stick it in the Q&A or just speak up if you want. Okay. I'm going to just really encourage you, if you are an artist, I would really encourage you to put both of these programs down as a first or second choice to see, watch that develop. Both of them have interesting components. Maybe you could speak a little bit about that like you've got an artist. Can you talk about just a little bit about what they might be thinking about for each of their programs? What are they going to walk away from each of your programs if they are an artist?
Bill, you want to go first?
Sure. So I think, so what would they walk away from the pre-college experience as an artist? We believe within the art program, the exposure to, in a lot of ways, what the beginnings of the rest of their life might be, kind of really laying that foundation as far as, and that's not meant to seem overly dramatic, but really like the idea of what's possible if you go the academic route, like if you want to pursue school, also being exposed to artists that develop these skills and pursue more commercial sort of track, like the idea of, so I'm really understanding that where, like, and I think the program also really pays a lot of time on this idea of the relationship of concept and craft, so technique, so where to learn these, how to do certain important core skills, and then also where to find out more, how can you access additional information once you leave the program. So that's ideally, they leave with in a lot of ways, it's a toolkit that they might reference. Whether or not they go to school. And also if it's something, some of the students that go through the program and realize that they're actually maybe more interested in creative writing, or if it's something like they want to pursue biology, it turns out, but that the exposure to the concepts that the art program explores are serve as a foundation for a lot of all of life's pursuits. It really is. Yeah, I'm going to start to get more flowery and dramatic, but
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Chris, you're up.
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest differentiator, if you're a visual centric creator, between the fine art program and the game academy program, is the game academy program sort of forces you to collaborate, which is a plus and a minus. Some people don't like having to share the creative process. Some people are very internal and need that internal time to percolate and develop. If you're a game group artist, you're first of all working with your 4 or 5 teammates and convincing them that what you're doing is going to be good for the game. And then you're showing it to the faculty, just like in fine art, you're going to get a critique and we're going to give you the skills. Those parts are similar, but you're answering to multiple outside collaborative forces, which can be stressful, right? It just is. Some people thrive in that. Like I'm fundamentally a writer who happened to end up in the game design business. And I love sitting in a room with 4 other writers and brainstorming and working the story out. That's where I thrive. I hired novelists in the game industry and they hated collaborating because they're just used to working in their little world. So that's sort of the biggest thing. The thing that will happen in the game industry is the game academy is your art skills will get better because of rapid iteration and feedback and just working in different tools. That will happen. But you might find yourself enjoying the collaborative process quite a bit. So that would be the difference, I think.
And I just thought of something real quick. I was going to mention, because Chris just reminded me, I think that's also something which is the same, I think, in art and many of the pre-college programs, that also students have to learn how to project manage in a way whenever you have, say, you have 4 classes and everything's due on the same day. So, right, how are you going to ensure that every project hits a level that you feel good about whenever you come up, getting ready for a critique? So that's also something, talking with the students, talking with the faculty, like how do you manage your time when you really, really, really want to work on this lino cut, but you have this sculpture piece that you have to do, and it involves time and also may involve failure, making mistakes, and then accounting for that. So that's a really important, again, one of those life core skills that can be carried on if you don't pursue the arts, yeah.
Okay. And so just as a last reminder, We were just talking about art. The Game Academy is also, there are different tracks. There's audio. So if you're a musician, they are looking for musicians as well. And then software developers, in addition to the artists, but then also people who might have, maybe a shallower knowledge of multiple of those, right? Or just a real passion for games. So you want to dig further. The whole purpose of pre-college programs is maybe you're an artist and you don't know what kind of artist you are. Are you the one that wants to sit alone and focus, have that quiet time? Or do you like the collaboration? That's exactly what pre-college is about. You get to try these things out. You will enjoy yourself and learn no matter what, and it will help propel you forward in that direction, or say, hey, you know what? Maybe that's not right for me at the undergraduate level. That is the purpose of pre-college programs, and you will find that here. So we have gone 2 minutes. Oh, Bill has one. I see.
No, I was
Yes.
going to say that there's one more question that was dropped into the chat, or the more section.
Oh, okay. All right.
Q&A.
Thank you. How long do students have to decide whether to enroll? They've got 7 days. So if you receive an offer of admittance, you've got 7 days to reply on the reply form and pay an enrollment deposit if that's required. So yeah, good question. And then, it's 8:02. So I'm going to close for the evening. Let me first thank the presenters. Thanks so much for taking this time with us in your evening. And just to all of our participants here, on behalf of pre-college programs, thank you for spending this time learning about what we are all about and what your summer could look like. And we hope you're considering, or you've already started your application. I look forward to reading it. So with that, we'll say good night. Thanks so much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.